The air in the Whitmore Estate dining room was dense with the fragrance of new coffee and old money. I sat at the long mahogany table, my tattoo tight, my hands folded like a kid waiting for permission to speak. Clara was across from me, giggling, at something her cousin said, her eyes bright in a manner they hadn't been with me in months. Her family filled the room. Uncles in fitted suits and women with diamond earrings, all of them sharing anecdotes about vacations I'd never been asked to. I was Miles Harrington, the guy who married into this. The one they tolerated because Clara said, "I do," 6 years ago. But I wasn't one of them, never would be. I sipped my orange juice, trying to merge into the wallpaper when Julian, Clara's older brother, leaned across the table. His cufflinks glinted under the chandelier. "Miles," he murmured, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're very quiet. Don't they teach you how to talk at those community colleges?" A few chuckles rippled around the table. My jaw tightened, but I forced a smile. I'd learned to let his jabs slide. Clara said it was easier that way. "Keep the peace," she'd whisper after every family gathering, her hand on my arm like she was soothing a dog. I was about to change the subject, ask about the weather or some other safe nonsense when Julian picked up his coffee mug. It was steaming, fresh from the pot. He looked right at me, his smirk sharp as a blade, and then he tilted the mug. Hot coffee splashed across my face, burning my skin, soaking my shirt. The room went silent. My eyes stung. My cheeks throbbed. And for a second, I couldn't breathe. Julian laughed, a short, cruel bark, and said, "Oops, clumsy me. I don't remember standing. I don't remember balling my fist. But I remember the crack, the sound of my knuckles against his jaw, the way his head shot back, the way his chair tipped when he hit the floor. Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a fork. Clara's mother, Beatrix, grabbed her pearls like I'd just lit the table on fire. Julian rushed to his feet, holding his face, eyes wide with amazement. I stood there, my hand aching, coffee trickling down my chin, waiting for someone to say something, anything. Clara stared at me, her mouth a narrow line, her eyes icy as the marble floor. No one inquired if I was okay. No one called Julian out for what he'd done. Beatrix hurried to her son, fawning over him like he was a hurt infant, not a 38-year-old man who had just assaulted me. My father-in-law, Edward, cleared his throat and said, "Miles, perhaps you should step outside. Step outside." Like I was the problem. I stared at Clara again, waiting for her to stand up, to exclaim, "Julian, what the hell?" But she didn't. She folded her napkin, laid it neatly on the table, and looked away. My chest burned hotter than my face. I stepped out of the dining room, through the foyer with its crystal chandelier and family photographs, and onto the front porch. The Connecticut air was fresh, the kind that makes you feel alive. But all I felt was small. I stroked my cheek. Red, painful, probable scarring. I'd spent years swallowing their insults, their sideways glances, their comments about my job as a software engineer, my parents' modest house, my life before. Clara, I did it for her, for us. But standing there with the echo of Julian's chuckle in my ears and Clara's stillness louder than anything, I realized something. I wasn't just invisible to them. I was invisible to her, too. The door behind me stayed shut. No one came after me. Not Clara, not her cousins, not even the staff who'd seen the whole thing. I pulled out my phone, my hand, shaking, and opened a browser. I didn't know what I was looking for. Not yet. But I knew I couldn't go back inside. Not to that table. Not to that life. My thumb hovered over the screen, and for the first time in years, I felt a spark of something I'd forgotten. Anger, certainly, but also the faint pulse of my own worth. I wasn't going to apologize. Not this time. The silent ones. They sneak up on you. I'd gotten used to the rhythm of the city, the clatter of metro trains, the fragrance of bread wafting from bakeries, the way strangers nodded instead of smiled. My studio in the 11th arrondissement was home now. Its creaky bed and chipped sink, familiar in a way Clara's polished condo never was. The burn on my face had faded to a faint pink scar, barely noticeable unless you looked close, and I didn't mind it anymore. It was proof I'd survived something, but there were bits of me still there in New York, things I couldn't leave behind forever, not the life with Clara, not the Whitmore world. I was done with that, but the small stuff that counted. My dad's wooden toolbox, scraped and heavy with memories, of him showing me how to fix a broken faucet, the books I'd studied in college, dogered paperbacks that carried me through late evenings, my mom's ancient Polaroid camera, the one she'd used to capture fuzzy photos of me as a kid. I'd left them in the condo when I escaped, and now, sitting by the window, watching Paris wake up, I knew I had to go back for them. Not to stay, not to heal things, simply to reclaim what was mine. I booked a round-trip flight that morning, using the last of Clara's credit card before my freelance money rolled in. The goal was straightforward. Fly in, get my belongings, fly out. No chatting, no fighting, just in and out. The journey back was long. The cabin felt foul, and I kept my head down, avoiding the chatty guy next to me who wanted to talk about wine. Landing in New York felt like walking into a past I didn't want. JFK's chaos, the dreary skyline, the weight of all I'd escaped from. I got a cab to the condo, my keys still on the ring, and stood outside the building for a minute, peering up at the windows. Our house, hers now, was on the 5th floor. I worried if she'd changed the locks. It was mid-afternoon, a Tuesday. I expected she'd be at work. But when I turned the key and pulled the door open, there she was. Clara, standing in the kitchen, a glass of water in her hand, her eyes wide, like she'd seen a ghost. "Miles," she murmured, her voice soft, wobbly. "You came back." I walked inside, locked the door behind me, and kept my tone level. Just for my things. She laid the glass down, her blonde hair pulled back tight, her face slimmer than I recalled. She was still gorgeous, but it didn't touch me the way it used to. "You don't have to do this," she said, stepping closer. "We can talk." Julian apologized. He didn't mean it. "We can go to therapy. Figure this out." I shook my head, pushing past her to the hall closet where I'd left my stuff. "You watched him burn me, Clara. You told me to apologize." She followed, her voice rising. "I was scared. It was a mess, okay? But rushing off to God knows where. That's not